Hi, guys. I felt today would be a great opportunity to share a chat with you guys with fantastic Christian Van Day, who's here with me today. How you doing, Christian?
Good, Lawrence. How are you?
Good. Now, Christian, you've become kind of our resident expert around hardware when it comes to audio. And I'm so grateful for that because you and I both know from our years of playing with gadgets that it can be a minefield if you choose to purchase equipment that might look good but just doesn't deliver.
Oh,
And
yeah.
on top of that, things that you hope work together well and then discover that they just don't. And I thought it'd be great to be able to talk with you not just about HypnoStudio, which you put together and which I'm really excited about, but also, the benefits of it, and I guess some of the challenges we've experienced in the past in just trying to utilize some of this equipment.
Sure.
So how did HypnoStudio come about?
Well, it's funny you, of all people, should ask that question, Lawrence, because HypnoStudio came out because of you, and I
Yay!
blame you for all of this. This is all your fault.
Sorry, not sorry.
When I first became interested in hypnotherapy, I did all the courses, got all my skills in terms of delivering hypnotherapy. And then I thought, I've seen these people in these different ads and different places using headphones. And I wanted to know more about that. And I thought, that sounds like a good idea. And I heard people say you don't need to use headphones, and other people say they're essential. And I thought I just wanted to find out for myself. So I asked around, and then I heard about this guy called Lawrence Akers. And I was like, okay, I've been told he runs this course all about recording and how to do recordings. And really, it all started from there. This whole world opened up for me that prior to that, I didn't have a huge amount of interest in. But to be honest, I just knew nothing about. I knew nothing about any of this. And it just sent me on this spiral, upward spiral of just knowledge and growth and learning and interest. And I discovered this hobby after 48 years of being on this planet. That I just never knew it existed, and I've been fascinated by it ever since.
It's a lot of
And
fun when you throw yourself into it, isn't it?
it's incredible. It's incredible. There's this whole world. And I remember once, this might be a strange analogy, but once I found a real small injured pigeon in my backyard, and I thought it was about to pass away. It was that badly mutilated, and but I started to look after it, and I thought, how am I going to? The vet wasn't much help. I sort of said it was probably going to die. And I went online, and then I found this whole world of forums about how to look after pigeons. And it's like, the more you look, unless you actually look for it, you won't actually find it, which is probably a good metaphor for life. But there is a whole world, and the further you go, the deeper you go. But the one I think maybe there's some similarities, or there's some benefits of this all being online, is that the whole area around audio, and then audio productions, and with the latest, I guess, integrations around Zoom, and the deeper you go, there's more and more of it. And like, you can go onto YouTube and type in a review for one product, and you'll find that there's 1,000 reviews for that one product, and it's like the knowledge base is endless. So it just captured me, and the fact that all of this information was available online, I've just got carried away with it ever since, to this day, that I now have a product which I now sell. But in answer to your question, it all started with you. So thank you for giving me the inspiration.
That's really kind of you. Thank you. And it's funny that you say that there is so much information out there, because quite often I find that a lot of the information can sometimes be conflicting. I think it's important to recognize that there are lots of, I think I've said this in the course lots of times, that there's lots of different ways to do one thing. There's not necessarily the one right way to do it. It's, there's lots of different ways that you can explore and find what works best for you. But I do know that years ago, I created a little webinar on building a hypnotherapy mixer. And I did that after doing so much research and finding so many challenges. And even to this day now, that little mixer works to a degree, but I wouldn't recommend it to people now.
Sure.
It'd be like, then it was kind of, dipping my toe in the water. And I know some people built it and used it and was all great and everything. But on the whole, it has a lot of flaws and a lot of challenges. And what I have to say that I love about what you've done with HypnoStudio is that any of the concerns I had with what I had presented a few years ago is completely gone. So for instance, with HypnoStudio, I know that you can have 2 microphones working if you want that.
Sure.
I know that you can have 2 headphones with individual volume controls, which is fantastic. I know there's some built-in effects, so it doesn't matter if you want to connect it to a computer or potentially use it live. You can have some effects happening there, although it's also got the ability to be able to connect to a computer or an MP3 player. I was about to say an iPod. Geez, I'm sounding old there. A smartphone. All these great little things it can do.
iPod.
Yeah, I know that you've been able to take it out into the park without worrying about having to connect it up to certain things there and to be able to get it to work there. So all these things that in the past people had asked me, could this device do this, this, and this? All those bells and whistles that were a challenge back then, I think you've somehow managed to work your way around. So kudos to you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. And it was all trial and error because that original item that you mentioned, I have got in my shed along with about 20 other different mixes because what you said is so true. It doesn't really matter what people say on YouTube until you try it yourself. You'll probably find that it's not necessarily the case in real life. So some people will give some tutorials or instructions that I've noticed on some of these YouTube channels are saying, this is the way to go and it will work. You go home, you can do exactly the same thing and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't understand why it wouldn't work. And then, once you really drill down further and further, there's so much more, like I was saying before, to this than meets the eye. So I guess that was one of the things about HypnoStudio was about making it really simple and making it really easy, because I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm not a real techno whiz, but I'm not completely in the dark either. And I'm finding this really hard. So surely there has to be a simpler way. And it's taken me hours and hours, days, months even to work it out, which probably begs the question, is there a simpler way? There is, but it's taken a long time to get there. And it has been really challenging. But yeah, what you see is not necessarily what you get. So what I have discovered most of all, though, is that you get what you pay for.
I agree. The whole kind of tagline of my online course is about being able to create great hypnotic audio recordings with the equipment that you most likely already have. But one rule I do have is that if you are going to go and purchase some new equipment, you may as well purchase something that is of a really good quality, because it's more likely to provide you with a really high quality result, as well as last a hell of a lot longer than, I'm like you, I've bought so many cheap ass mixers and pieces of equipment over time in the hope that they are going to provide me with some, fantastic result. And ultimately I'm bitterly disappointed in the end. I hate to think of how much money I've spent over time.
Oh yeah.
I think what people need to recognize with, the HypnoStudio is how much money you have spent over time to get to that point. Much in the same way that you have trainers get up and go, I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in training so that I can teach you this. It's the same sort of thing. We've spent heaps of money trying to make sure we get it right. I do know, for a lot of people out there who may not know this, you're particularly around headphones. Headphones is one of the things that I get asked about all the time. If I'm completely honest, it's probably one of my least favorite topics out of all of them. So again, I'm so glad that you're in this space now. But what people don't realize is that headphones need to be powered in order to work. And the way the headphone gets that power is from what it's connected to, the jack that it's connected to. And so one of the things I'm always wary of is if a setup requires a splitter of some sort, because what the splitter is essentially doing is dividing the power that comes from that socket to multiple devices. Now, it might work.
Yeah.
Might. But it really depends upon the requirements of the headphones. And I tend to find that hypnotherapists love headphones with bells and whistles galore, noise cancelling, which requires a fair amount of power. And this is why I'm really cautious about any setup that uses a splitter, because ultimately we can't guarantee that the headphones you get are going to work with it. It's as simple as that.
Absolutely. It's almost like with a splitter, in my experience, you can almost guarantee a splitting headache trying to work them out. And it's like, it's coming through this earphone, but it's not coming through this earphone. I can't work it out. That's if it works at all. So when I went down my path, I thought to myself, I can't have splitters in this because there's too many variables. And you're sort of downgrading. You're not giving justice to the item itself if you're, not delivering the full power to the unit. So I really wanted to do with that. And also the fact that I'd spent many times, unplugging and plugging splitters in and then putting back together the wrong way, 5 minutes before a client arrived. And it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? And I started color coding things, the yellow goes to the yellow, the red goes to the red and all that kind of thing. And then, it was just too much work. And I thought, wouldn't it be just much simpler just to have this plug goes into there and that's the right way. And we didn't have to worry about splitters at all. So with the HypnoStudio, we got rid of that headache, quick smart for sure. Absolutely.
No, you've done a great job there. And I know even from, our chats in the past, some really good quality brand headphones may not necessarily work the way you kind of expect them to as well. Or, plugged into like an XLR, that's technical talk, plugged into a microphone thing, sometimes you still get varying results. So I think the fact that you've narrowed down the brands and the components that work well together is fantastic news and such a relief for people who might want something like this but don't want the headache that goes with it.
Absolutely. And I had been, like, in part of my research, I visited DJ shops and different types of retail outlets, music specialists, and they've said, these are the headphones you need. And I've taken them home, and sure, they sound great and they might be comfortable and they have all the other aspects I was looking for, but they only come supplied with like a 1 meter curly cord, for example. So, and I've tried to use them in a session. Once again, I've made all of the mistakes, which is handy for anyone who invests in a HypnoStudio, because you can avoid some of them. But you get these really good quality, very expensive headphones, but only come with a 1 meter curly cord cable. And you're trying to do a hypnotherapy session and it's bouncing off of their shoulder, or you have to sit really close to them because the cord doesn't stretch. So even really, I guess, fundamental stuff that initially you may not consider, because I certainly didn't, but things like cord length as well. That is a factor I've taken into it. Like I say, this is a unit made by a hypnotherapist for hypnotherapists, because then I've gone the next step after that and said, well, if it's going to be a long cord and it's going to be used in a workplace type of setting, it needs to be durable. It needs to be a proper cord that's going to be able to withstand the rigors of daily use. So I guess they're all the little nuances that I've tried to work out. So yeah, I think initially with headphones, people sort of think, well, what's the best sound? And that has always been my, I guess, predominant number one criteria. But then there's a whole heap of other stuff around that, like how comfortable are they, how long the cable is, and lots of different factors to it. So yeah, there's probably more to it. Like I said before, the more you look at it, the more you find.
Absolutely. And the more you can be tempted with, products that are half the cost and end up being absolutely crap. And also just wanted to make sure you keep it within a reasonable budget as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can pay, I didn't know this, but you can walk into some of these DJ specialists, they sell headphones for $5,000. I'm like, $5,000 for headphones? Yeah.
The reality is some really good headphones are going to cost as much, if not more, than the mixer console unit itself, the audio interface itself.
Absolutely.
That's just what it is nowadays. So, if you want bells and whistles, sometimes they're made of gold and sometimes they're made of copper.
Oh, absolutely. But I do think sometimes it's a bit like, not that I drink, but I think it's a bit like wine tasting. It's like whether it's a $5 nip or whether it's, like a $800 bottle of wine. A lot of people probably don't really notice the difference unless they know what they're looking for.
It is all subjective. And that's something I've been saying in the course myself, is that when you're mixing sound levels and everything, you should be wearing headphones just to try to get it kind of right and be able to hear those background noises that are going on. But it's also subjective as well. Does it feel right? Does it sound right for you? We've obviously discussed that, the HypnoStudio is fantastic for in-person client sessions. I guess it's kind of a bit challenging at the moment with lockdown restrictions. Hopefully, they will ease at some point. However, the benefit, I guess, of the HypnoStudio as well is that if you're doing Zoom sessions, you can have a lot of the effects that HypnoStudio offers being played through the Zoom audio as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you wanted to add some of those little nuances, it goes through the mixer before it gets to Zoom. So that is definitely an option for people to use. Although, to be totally honest, and I think when I've had inquiries from people around Zoom, in terms of being totally upfront, you've got to understand so much of this will depend on the user. So what their setup is, what their internet connection.
You're absolutely right. Like. It's kind of like if you look at the internet as being this stream, you have the bottleneck on your side, the bottleneck on their side. You might have a wider bottleneck that's capable of doing so much more depending on your internet connection. But you can't guarantee what their internet connection is going to be like. And that bottleneck might be so tight that it does cause issues with the sound. Particularly a warble is a common one.
Yeah.
What I tend to find works best is that you make sure that your client has their microphone turned off on mute.
Good idea.
That helps to eliminate any of the sound coming back. But you also just want to make sure you turn the volume down on your sound a bit because it is louder on their side, and perhaps just do a little bit of a test session first before jumping into hypnosis. But you are so right. We unfortunately, technology is the way it is. I know that people really want to be able to add music to their Zoom sessions. Sometimes it's going to work really well. Sometimes it's not.
Yeah, that's the reality. The good part of Zoom sessions, I'm finding getting people's captured attention via this screen, though, is very useful. So, from a focus point of view, having people really dialed in, they're not like my clinic. I think I went to a bit of effort to try and make the clinic look interesting with different prints on the wall and, different objects on the shelves and a few bits of memorabilia around the place. But maybe that's a little bit distracting when you get the Zoom call going and you really got them focused on the screen. I think that is an advantage, which is why I believe Zoom sessions are just as effective.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, you can connect an digital audio recorder to the HypnoStudio if you want. If you don't particularly want to record straight to a computer, you could connect a digital recorder, I imagine, and be able to record straight to that.
Yeah, absolutely. If you've already got an existing recorder, or if you wanted to do that, just to sort of take that step away from the computer, you can do that for sure. Absolutely.
Or if you're out and about in the field somewhere, you can get some natural field recording sounds happening.
Absolutely.
Sit by a lake and do a recording there. Probably not the best idea, but hey, why not?
Absolutely.
Is the HypnoStudio waterproof?
I wouldn't recommend it, and I wouldn't recommend kicking it down the hallway either. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. If anyone wants to check out HypnoStudio and get in touch with you, what's the best way they can do that?
At this point in time, the best option is to join the Facebook group, which is just HypnoStudio. It's been so far more popular than I ever imagined. I had ideas of getting a website with a shopping cart and all the rest of it attached to it by now, and I haven't done it. So just because it's just been so popular. That will happen over the next month or so, I imagine. But at this point in time, I just want to keep it relatively personalized in terms of its delivery, and all the information by joining the HypnoStudio Facebook group is the easiest way to find out more about the product itself.
Great. Christian, thanks for your time today. It's been great to be able to chat with you about this. And, for people who might be interested in, now that they've done my course and they're keen to be able to build on their recording studio capability, this is such a great investment that they can do that's going to really enrich the quality of the sound they produce as well. So thanks for putting this together. I'm glad that someone took this headache away from me and has made such a great success of it.
No, I'm being totally genuine. You are my inspiration for this, because if it wasn't for you, this would never have happened. And it goes both ways too. So if somebody invests in a HypnoStudio, I'll give them the basics on how to get up and running with the recordings, but to really go deep and create those really professional sounding recordings, the ones you want to be able to distribute, or particularly if you're going to sell them, they have to be absolutely top-notch quality. Then they're going to have to do some research and take the next step into the recordings, and that's what you offer. So there's a lot of synergies between what we do. And
well, I'd love to show some of your guys all about binaural beats and dual recording techniques.
Absolutely.
Do bilateral stimulation and all that sort of
Easy
stuff I cover in my course too. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Great to see you today. Thanks so much for your time.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Lawrence. Thanks so much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.